The morning sun rose over Zephora, bathing the crystal towers and floating islands in soft gold and violet light. Captain Daniel Hayes awoke in the quarters provided for him, stretching as he listened to the gentle hum of life outside. The previous day's battle with the Krelos fleet had ended, but the weight of leadership remained with Queen Solara. Daniel stepped out onto the balcony, feeling the strange yet calming air of the planet. He watched as Solara moved through the gardens, her long, elegant form gliding over the glowing plants. She seemed different now, less burdened by doubt, more at peace with herself. The battle had taught her many lessons, but more importantly, Daniel had seen her begin to see herself differently. He walked toward her, careful not to startle her. "Good morning," he said softly. Solara turned, a faint smile on her lips. "Good morning, human. Did you sleep well?" "I did," Daniel replied. "And you?" "Restless as always," she admitted, but calmer than before. She paused, looking out over the floating gardens. "I have thought a lot since yesterday. About strength, about leadership, and about myself." Daniel nodded. "It is good to reflect. That is how we grow." Solara studied him for a long moment. "You have changed how I see many things. You showed me that doubt is not weakness, that courage is not only about battle, but about knowing oneself and acting with clarity, and that beauty is more than what is visible." Daniel smiled gently, "Because it is about heart, actions, and integrity. That is what true beauty is. I do not see your skin or the way your features are shaped. I see your courage, your wisdom, and your strength. That is what makes you gorgeous." Solara's eyes softened. For centuries, she had hidden her insecurities behind power and authority. For centuries, she had believed that appearances and fear defined value. But now, listening to Daniel, she felt a truth she had never known. Perhaps she was not hideous. Perhaps she could embrace herself fully, flaws and all. "You speak as if you know me," she said softly.
"Yet I am alien to you."
"How can you see so clearly?" "Because I see beyond the surface," Daniel said simply. "I look at the choices you make, the way you care for your world, the courage you show even when you doubt yourself. That is who you truly are, Solara." The queen looked down at her hands, feeling a strange warmth spreading through her chest. "It is strange," she whispered, "to hear these words and to feel them as if they are meant for me alone. You see what no one else ever has." Daniel nodded. "Because you are worth seeing. You always have been." Solara took a deep breath, letting his words sink in. She thought of the lives she had protected, the decisions she had made, the people she had inspired. Perhaps she had been too harsh on herself. Perhaps she had been too focused on the judgments of others. She looked at Daniel and realized that the admiration he offered was not empty flattery. It was recognition of her true self. "You make me feel brave in a way I did not know I could be," she said softly. "Not for battle, but for simply being me." Daniel smiled, a quiet pride in his eyes. "That is what humans do for each other. We see the good in one another and we help each other rise, even across worlds, even across species." Solara considered his words, feeling a sense of clarity she had never experienced. She had always relied on power to command respect, on fear to maintain control. But Daniel had shown her that true strength came from understanding, from trust and from courage, not just the courage to fight, but the courage to see oneself as worthy. "I wish I had known this centuries ago," she whispered. "I could have lived differently." Daniel shook his head gently. "You live as you are now. That is what matters. The past teaches us, but the present gives us the power to act. You are learning now, and that is what counts." The queen looked at him, a soft light in her eyes. "You are human," she said, "but somehow you see more clearly than anyone else I have known." "And you, Solara," Daniel replied, "are more than your power. You are a being of heart, wisdom, and courage. That is what makes you remarkable." For a long moment they stood in silence, watching the glowing plants of the floating gardens sway gently in the breeze. Solara felt a peace she had not known in centuries, a quiet joy that came from being seen and understood. She realized that she had been too harsh on herself, too critical and too focused on appearances. "I have lived for centuries," she said softly, "and yet, I feel as though I am only beginning to understand myself." "You are," Daniel said, "and that understanding will grow. Each day, each choice, each act of courage will help you see your true worth." Solara looked at him, her gaze steady. "And you? What do you see in me now?" Daniel smiled. "I see a queen who is wise and brave. I see someone who learns from mistakes and grows stronger. I see someone who cares deeply for her people and her world. I see someone who is truly beautiful. The words settled in Solara's mind, a truth she had long denied. She had relied on power, beauty, and fear, but now she understood that true beauty came from within. Courage, wisdom, compassion, and trust. These were the qualities that defined her. For the first time in centuries, she smiled fully, without hesitation or doubt. Maybe I am gorgeous, she whispered, more to herself than to Daniel. Daniel's smile widened. You are, he said simply. The day passed in quiet conversation and reflection. Solara led Daniel to the palace observatory, a high tower that overlooked the entire planet. From there they could see the forests, rivers, and cities of Zyphora stretched out like a living tapestry. The floating islands moved gracefully across the sky, casting shadows on the land below. This is my responsibility, Solara said quietly. All of this and more. I protect it, guide it, and nurture it, and now I see that I can do so with confidence, not fear. Daniel nodded. You have always been capable. Now you are learning to trust yourself. Solara looked at him, her eyes glimmering. You have changed something in me, human. Something I never thought could change. I did not change you, Daniel said. You changed yourself by listening, by trusting, by embracing who you are. I only helped you see it. The queen considered his words, feeling a quiet sense of pride and acceptance. She had faced battles, threats, and doubt for centuries, yet she had never felt this sense of clarity. Daniel had shown her that she was not defined by fear or appearance, but by her actions, her heart, and her courage. As the stars began to appear in the sky, Solara led Daniel to a quiet terrace. They sat together watching the lights of the planet below. The air was calm, filled with the hum of life and the soft glow of the floating islands. Do you believe, Solara asked softly, that even humans from distant worlds can make a difference in the lives of others? Daniel smiled. I do. We may be small, fragile, and temporary in the universe, but our choices, our courage, and our hearts can have a lasting impact, just as you have impacted this planet and me. Solara's eyes softened, a feeling of gratitude filling her chest. Then I will remember this. I will remember that strength is not only in power, but in understanding. That beauty is not only in appearance, but in courage and heart, and that I am enough. You are, Daniel said, his voice calm and certain. For the first time, Solara felt fully at peace, not just as a queen, but as a being who had faced doubt and fear and had emerged stronger. She had learned to trust herself, to value her heart, and to see herself as Daniel saw her, remarkable, courageous, and beautiful. As the night deepened, the palace shimmered under the starlight. Solara turned to Daniel, a faint smile on her lips. You have shown me a truth I had forgotten, she said. That I am more than what I believed. That I am seen, understood, and valued, Daniel nodded. And you always have been. You only needed to see it yourself. The queen stood, her posture straight and confident. Then I will face the future differently, she said, with courage, wisdom, and heart, and with trust in myself and in those who walk beside me. Daniel smiled, feeling a sense of quiet satisfaction. He had come to Zyphora as an explorer, curious about an alien world, but he had left a mark, not through conquest or power, but through understanding, respect, and the human ability to see beyond the surface. Solara looked at him one last time that night, her eyes reflecting the starlight and the glowing crystals of her palace. Thank you, Daniel, for showing me who I truly am. And thank you, Daniel replied, for showing me a world where courage, beauty, and strength can exist in ways I never imagined. The bond between human and queen had grown, not through fear or power, but through trust, respect, and understanding. They had faced a threat together, discovered the meaning of courage, and learned that true beauty lay in heart and action. As the night settled over Zyphora, both of them felt a sense of hope. The planet was safe, its people secure, and the queen, Solara, had begun to see herself in a new light. And Daniel, the human who had journeyed across the stars, knew that their story was only beginning. For Solara, the alien queen who had once whispered, I am hideous, now smiled fully, quietly confident and entirely aware that she was indeed gorgeous. And Daniel, he simply smiled back, knowing that some truths are best seen, not spoken. The morning sun cast a soft golden light over the crystalline palace, making it shine like a jewel against the lavender sky. Captain Daniel Hayes stood on the balcony, watching the floating islands drift lazily above the alien forests. The night had been quiet, but his mind was full of questions. He wondered how a being so powerful could doubt herself, and why someone who ruled an entire planet could feel so small. Solara appeared beside him, her footsteps silent on the crystal floor. She seemed different in the morning light, less commanding, more human in her movements. Her silver-violet skin shimmered faintly, and her eyes held a thoughtful expression. She studied Daniel for a moment as if trying to read his thoughts. "You have a strange way of looking at the world," she said softly. "You see things that others do not. Why is that?" Daniel smiled. "Maybe it is because I have learned to look beyond appearances, to see the truth in a person, in a place, in a situation. You cannot judge everything by what is visible." Solara nodded slowly. "I have lived for centuries, and yet I feel as though I understand so little. I have power, armies, advisors. I have knowledge, and still I doubt myself." "Doubt is natural," Daniel said. "Even humans doubt themselves. It is what we do with that doubt that matters. You are a queen, Solara, but you are also more than that. You are someone who thinks, someone who feels, someone who cares. That is what makes you remarkable." Solara looked away, a faint blush of color brightening her cheeks, something Daniel had not expected. "You are the first human who speaks to me without fear, without expectation. Why do you do this?" "Because I respect you," he said simply. "Not for your power, not for your position, but for who you are." For a moment, Solara was silent. She had never received such words before. Everyone around her either obeyed her commands or flattered her to gain favor. No one had ever respected her in this way. The feeling was strange yet comforting. "You will walk with me today," she finally said. "You will see more of my world. But beware. Zyphora is not always safe for humans." Daniel nodded, adjusting the straps of his exploration pack. "I am ready." They left the palace, stepping onto a platform that extended over the forest. From above, the trees looked like a vast ocean of color, their crystal-like leaves glinting in the sunlight. Strange creatures moved among the branches, some flying, others gliding silently. Daniel watched them carefully, taking notes in his digital pad. "You see only the surface," Solara said, pointing to the forest below. "There is more here than meets the eye. Life thrives in ways your human science cannot yet explain." Daniel looked intrigued. "I would like to learn. Show me." Solara led him along suspended pathways, revealing hidden gardens and streams of glowing liquid that ran like rivers of light. She spoke of the balance in her world, how every creature and plant contributed to the ecosystem. Daniel listened attentively, asking questions and sharing observations from Earth's nature. Despite the differences, he noticed similarities, the way life adapted, survived, and thrived. As they walked, Solara spoke of her responsibilities. "I am expected to protect my people, to make decisions that affect millions, yet I sometimes feel inadequate. My appearance, my choices, they are judged constantly. Even those closest to me doubt my judgment at times." Daniel considered her words. "Leadership is not about perfection. It is about responsibility and about learning from mistakes. You cannot control how others judge you, but you can control your actions. That is what matters." Solara listened, absorbing his words. For centuries, she had relied on fear and authority to command respect. Daniel's approach was different. He spoke of understanding, empathy, and trust. These were foreign concepts to a queen who had lived by orders and obedience. Hours passed, and they reached a clearing where the sunlight filtered through the leaves in sparkling patterns. In the center was a small lake, its surface perfectly still, reflecting the sky above. Solara paused, staring at the water. "This place calms me," she said. "I come here when I wish to think. But I never invite anyone, humans. They do not understand such things," Daniel smiled. "I understand more than you think. Peace and reflection are important no matter the world. It is how we recharge and find clarity." Solara turned to him, her expression serious. "You are different, human. Most see me and feel fear. You see me and respect me. Why?" "Because respect is not given based on appearance or power," Daniel said. "It is given based on who someone is. And you, Solara, are more than what others see. You are intelligent, courageous, and thoughtful. That is why I respect you." Solara's lips curved into a small, genuine smile. For a being who had ruled centuries, whose presence could command armies, this simple act of recognition felt strange. Yet it was comforting, grounding her in a way she had never experienced. As they sat by the lake, Daniel noticed movement in the forest, a group of small creatures, curious and cautious, approaching them. Solara raised a hand and the creatures froze, watching her with wide, glowing eyes. She whispered softly and they scattered. "Why do they obey you?" Daniel asked. "They know my voice, my presence," she said. "But more than that, they sense my intention. My power alone is not enough. Respect and understanding are necessary for true control." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "That is true for humans as well. People follow those they trust, not just those they fear." Solara considered this. Trust. Something she had rarely received, and yet something she now felt from this human sitting beside her. She was beginning to understand that strength did not come only from fear or force, but from connection. The afternoon passed with more exploration. Solara showed Daniel the floating gardens where plants grew suspended in mid-air, and the crystal caves where the walls sang with natural resonance when touched. Daniel marveled at the ingenuity of her world, and Solara watched his reactions with quiet interest. "You see beauty where others see danger," she said finally. "I see potential," Daniel replied. "Every place, every being has potential. Even people." Solara's eyes softened. "Even me?" "Yes," Daniel said firmly. "Even you." For the first time in centuries, Solara felt a sense of ease. She was not being judged, not being feared, not being flattered, simply being seen, and it was a powerful feeling. As evening approached, the sky turned a deeper shade of purple, and the floating islands reflected the last light of the day. Solara led Daniel to a high platform overlooking the entire palace. From there, the planet stretched endlessly, forests and rivers and cities shining like jewels. "This is my responsibility," Solara said quietly. "All of this and more. I protect it, guide it, and rule it. And yet sometimes I wonder if I am enough." Daniel placed a reassuring hand on the railing beside her. "You are enough, Solara. Not because you are perfect, but because you care. That is what makes someone great. That is what makes someone beautiful." Solara's eyes glimmered with a mix of surprise and curiosity. You truly believe that?" "I do," Daniel said. "And I know something else. Your strength and wisdom inspire others. That is more than any ruler could ask for." The queen looked at him for a long moment, then turned her gaze to the horizon. She felt a new understanding blossoming inside her. Maybe she had judged herself too harshly. Maybe for the first time she could see herself as Daniel saw her, not just as a powerful queen, but as a being worthy of respect and admiration. The night settled over Zyphora. Stars reflecting off the crystal surfaces of the palace, Daniel and Solara stood in silence. Two beings from different worlds connected by curiosity, respect, and the beginnings of trust. "This is only the start," Solara whispered. "I feel hope, something I have not felt in centuries." Daniel smiled gently. "And it will grow. Not because of me, but because of you. You have the strength to embrace it." Solara's eyes lingered on him, a faint smile playing across her lips. The human had shown her a new way to see herself, a new way to approach her life and her duties. And for the first time, she felt that being powerful did not mean she had to be alone, and being different did not mean she was unworthy. Together, they looked out over the alien world, the night full of possibilities. The bond between them, built on understanding and respect, was only beginning. And somewhere in the quiet, Solara whispered softly, almost to herself, "Perhaps I am not so hideous after all." And Daniel smiled, knowing that their journey together had only just begun. The calm of Zyphora was suddenly broken by distant rumbling. Captain Daniel Hayes and Queen Solara stood on the palace balcony, watching the horizon. Dark clouds had begun to gather above the floating islands, swirling unnaturally fast. Even from a distance, the movement of the clouds seemed deliberate, almost intelligent. Solara's eyes narrowed. "This is not natural," she said. "Something is coming." Daniel adjusted the straps of his exploration pack. "What do you mean? Another storm?" Solara shook her head. "No, this is an attack. A fleet from the neighboring world of Krelos. They have long coveted Zyphora's resources, and they will not wait for negotiation. They strike now when my attention is divided." Daniel's heart quickened, but his face remained calm. "Then we prepare. Show me what you need me to do." Solara looked at him in surprise. Most humans would have panicked, she thought. Others would have been paralyzed by fear. Yet Daniel's calmness, his steady presence, gave her a strange sense of assurance. "You understand strategy?" she asked. I understand problem solving, Daniel said, and planning. Let me help. Solara hesitated but nodded. Very well. You will see what it means to defend a planet. She led him to the command room, a large space filled with holographic maps of Zephora and surrounding space. Lights flashed in patterns, showing the movement of her own ships and the incoming Krelos fleet. Solara's advisors hovered nearby, ready to execute her commands, but her attention was focused on the human. You will guide me through this, she said. But remember, this is not a game. Lives are at stake, Daniel nodded. I understand. Solara began issuing orders, her voice clear and firm. Daniel observed the patterns of the enemy fleet and noticed something the advisors had overlooked. Using human logic and analysis, he suggested a diversion that could split the Krelos forces, allowing Solara's fleet to defend the planet without unnecessary loss. Her eyes widened. You are suggesting a tactic that my own generals overlooked? Yes, Daniel said simply. It is not about being stronger. It is about being smarter, using the environment and timing to your advantage. Solara hesitated, then made the decision to follow his plan. The ships were repositioned and Daniel watched as the Krelos fleet entered Zephora's atmosphere. The sky lit up with flashes of energy as ships fired, dodged, and maneuvered. The battle was fast and chaotic, but Daniel's diversion worked perfectly. The Krelos forces split, their coordination faltering. Solara's ships advanced with precision, guided by her commands but aided by Daniel's tactical insight. For the first time, the Queen realized that strength alone did not win battles. Intelligence, observation, and calm thinking could change the outcome. Amidst the battle, Solara felt a flicker of doubt. What if it fails? She whispered, more to herself than to Daniel. Then we adapt, Daniel said calmly. Plans can change, but courage and clarity will guide you. Solara took a deep breath, focusing on the orders she gave, the strategies she executed, and the courage of her forces. Slowly the tide turned. The Krelos fleet, disorganized and demoralized, began to retreat. Their ships disappeared into the horizon, leaving the skies of Zephora quiet once more. Solara lowered herself onto a seat, exhausted but triumphant. We have won, she said, disbelief and relief mixing in her voice. I cannot remember the last time we drove off an invader so decisively. Daniel smiled faintly. Because you trusted logic as well as strength. You listened and adapted. That is true leadership. Solara looked at him, her eyes glimmering with a mix of awe and gratitude. You helped me see something I had forgotten. Power is not enough. Wisdom, courage, and insight. These are what matter most. It is also about trust, Daniel added. Trust in yourself and in those who support you. The Queen nodded, feeling a warmth she had not felt in centuries. She had led many battles, but never had she experienced victory in this way, through collaboration, understanding, and a perspective beyond fear. Daniel, the human, had shown her a new kind of strength. After the battle, Solara invited Daniel to walk among the gardens of the palace. The floating flowers glowed softly in the evening light, and streams of luminous water flowed peacefully. Despite the chaos that had just passed, this world seemed untouched by the battle, a reminder of why Solara fought so hard to protect it. You have changed something in me, Solara said quietly, walking beside him. I used to think that showing doubt was a weakness, that my value depended on fear and obedience. Daniel looked at her with gentle understanding. Doubt is not weakness. Recognizing it and choosing to act despite it is what makes you strong. You have always had the power. Now you are learning the courage to trust yourself as well. Solara considered his words, and for the first time she truly felt their meaning. She had spent centuries ruled by duty and expectation, always measured by what others thought of her. But Daniel did not judge her. He had seen her as she was, not just a queen, but a being with thoughts, feelings, and worth beyond appearances. They reached a small terrace overlooking the forest. A gentle breeze stirred the glowing leaves, and the air was filled with the soft hum of distant creatures. Solara leaned against the railing, her expression thoughtful. Why do you smile at me when I doubt myself? She asked again, a question that had returned after the battle. Because I see more than doubts, Daniel said calmly. I see courage, wisdom, and heart. I see someone who has survived centuries, who has faced challenges no human could imagine, and who continues to lead despite fear. That is why I smile. Solara's eyes softened, a flicker of something new appearing, a quiet pride untainted by arrogance. For centuries she had been admired, feared, or envied, but never had anyone acknowledged her strength and heart in this way. The queen took a deep breath. Perhaps I am beginning to see myself differently. You are, Daniel said with certainty, and that is just the beginning. As night fell, the palace lights shimmered like stars against the darkened sky. Solara invited Daniel to dine with her in a private chamber, away from her advisors. The meal was simple yet elegant, a mix of alien fruits and delicacies Daniel had never seen. They ate in quiet conversation, discussing strategy, life, and the possibilities of the universe. Solara shared her thoughts about the Krelos threat. They will return, she said, a shadow of worry crossing her face. But now I feel more prepared. Not because I am stronger, but because I understand more. And because you are here, Daniel smiled. We learn from each other. Strength comes in many forms. Knowledge, insight, courage, they all matter. And so does trust. Solara looked at him for a long moment, her eyes reflecting both the starlight and something deeper. You have changed my perspective on everything, she said softly. Even myself, Daniel nodded. It is not me who changes you. It is your willingness to see differently, to embrace understanding. You have always had the power. Now you are learning how to use it with clarity and confidence. The night stretched on, filled with quiet conversation and thoughtful reflection. Solara realized that she had found a companion in this human. Not a subordinate, not a subject, but someone who truly understood and respected her. And in this understanding she found comfort and inspiration. Before parting for the night, Solara led Daniel to a balcony overlooking the city below. The lights of Zephora glimmered, reflecting in the crystal structures like a sea of stars. She stood silently for a moment, her mind filled with thoughts of the battle and the lessons she had learned. You see me without fear, she whispered. You see my strength, my heart, my worth. I have not known this before. And you are not alone, Daniel said softly. Even the strongest beings need support. You are never truly alone if you allow others to walk with you. Solara felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of possibility she had not felt in centuries. The human had reminded her that strength was not only in power or fear, but in understanding, trust, and courage. And in this reminder she found hope for the future. As Daniel prepared to rest in the quarters provided for him, Solara watched him with a quiet smile. Perhaps this human was more than an explorer. Perhaps he was a teacher, a friend, and someone who could help her see her world and herself through new eyes. And somewhere in the silence of the palace, Solara whispered softly, almost to herself, maybe I am truly capable, maybe I am truly enough. For the first time in centuries, the alien queen felt a sense of balance, not just as a ruler, but as a being who could trust, learn, and grow. And Daniel, the human who had shown her this new perspective, knew that their journey together had only just begun. The night settled over Zephora, calm and quiet after the storm. Stars reflected off the crystal towers, and the gentle hum of life filled the air. In that quiet, two beings from different worlds found a bond, one of respect, understanding, and the promise of future adventures. The challenges had not ended. Krelos might return, threats might arise, but with wisdom, courage, and trust, Solara and Daniel were ready to face whatever came next. And in that readiness they found something neither had expected: hope. The spaceship landed with a soft hum, its metallic legs pressing gently against the alien soil. Captain Daniel Hayes stepped out, his boots sinking slightly into the strange red earth. He looked around, his eyes tracing the towering crystalline trees that glimmered under the pale sunlight. The sky was a soft lavender, dotted with small floating islands that drifted as if weightless. This planet called Zephora was uncharted in human records. It promised wonders, but Daniel knew it also held dangers. His mission was simple: observe, gather data, and return. Yet stories had reached Earth of an alien queen who ruled this planet. Solara, as she was called, had powers that made even the bravest humans nervous. Some said she could command the elements. Others whispered about strange creatures that obeyed her every word. Daniel did not fear her. Humans had survived worse than rumors and myths. As he and his small team advanced, the ground vibrated softly. Before they could react, a line of guards appeared, their armor glinting under the light. They carried long, elegant weapons, yet they did not attack immediately. A voice, melodic but firm, echoed around them. "You will come with us," Daniel nodded calmly. "We mean no harm. We are explorers from another world." The guards glanced at each other but did not relax. Daniel and his team were led along a pathway that seemed to float above the ground, suspended by unseen forces. The air smelled faintly sweet, like blooming flowers, and a soft humming filled the atmosphere. It was both beautiful and unnerving. Finally, they reached a palace built from translucent crystal. Light passed through the walls, casting rainbow reflections across the room. At the center sat Solara, the alien queen. Her presence was immediate, demanding attention without a word. Her skin shimmered in shades of silver and violet, her eyes deep pools of blue that seemed to see everything. Yet there was something more. In her posture, in her subtle gestures, a hint of uncertainty lingered. Daniel stepped forward. "I am Captain Daniel Hayes. We come in peace." Solara's gaze swept over him. Then in a soft, almost hesitant whisper, she said, "I am hideous, human. Why do you say I am gorgeous?" Daniel paused for a moment. He expected intimidation, maybe anger. Instead, he found something unexpected. Honesty. Here was a being who ruled an entire planet yet doubted her own appearance. He smiled gently. "Because," he said, choosing his words carefully, "what I see is more than your appearance. I see your strength, your wisdom, your presence." "That is beauty," Solara blinked. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not the ambassadors from other worlds, not the generals in her own court. They all either feared or flattered her, but none had truly seen her. The queen looked away, her long fingers brushing the crystal armrest. "I have ruled for centuries," she murmured. "I command armies. I make decisions that affect millions. And yet I still feel small, imperfect, useless." Daniel's expression softened. "Feeling uncertain does not make you weak. It makes you human. And even humans who feel small can achieve great things. Strength is not only in power. It is in courage and choices." Solara studied him. There was something calming in the human's presence, something that did not demand obedience or fear. For the first time in a long while, she felt curious rather than commanding. "Curious," she repeated, almost to herself. "You are curious, yet you are not afraid." "I am cautious," Daniel admitted. "But fear cannot guide all decisions. Understanding can. That is why I am here. To learn about your world, and perhaps to teach a little about mine." Solara's lips curved into the faintest smile. She had not smiled for centuries, not genuinely. The guards exchanged wary glances. Humans were strange creatures. They did not react the way other aliens did, not even when faced with overwhelming power. "Very well," Solara said. "You may speak, human, but you will not leave this room without my permission." Daniel nodded, unafraid. "I understand." The conversation shifted. Daniel asked questions about the planet, about Solara's life, and about the creatures that roamed the forests. Solara answered cautiously at first, describing her duties and responsibilities. She spoke of her army, her advisors, and the challenges of ruling a world where everything could be dangerous. "You are very young for your species," she observed. "You have not seen the centuries as I have. You cannot know the weight of leadership." "Perhaps not," Daniel said. "But I do know that leadership is not about perfection. It is about making decisions, protecting those who cannot protect themselves, and learning from mistakes. Even a queen may doubt herself yet still be strong." Solara's eyes softened. No one had ever explained it to her like that. Not her mentors, not the humans who came as conquerors, not even her closest allies. Her strength had always been measured by fear or obedience, never by understanding. The sun shifted in the lavender sky, casting a warm glow over the crystal palace. Daniel's team quietly observed, giving space to the conversation. They could see the change happening in the queen. She was opening up, sharing thoughts she usually kept hidden, and trusting a human to listen. Hours passed. Daniel asked about Solara's personal interests, the things she enjoyed in solitude. She hesitated, but finally admitted she liked to watch the floating gardens and listen to the soft hum of the planet's core. "It calms me," she said, "but I never share it with anyone. They would think me frivolous or weak." "You are not weak," Daniel said softly. "Even rulers need moments of peace. Even the strongest beings must care for themselves." For the first time, Solara laughed lightly. It was a sound like chimes in the wind, pure and rare. "You are very strange, human," she said. "You see things that others do not." Daniel smiled. "Perhaps that is because I look for what others overlook." I look for courage, wisdom, and heart. Those are the true measures of beauty. Solara studied him, a thought forming in her mind. Humans were fragile, yet they possessed something aliens did not. The ability to admire without fear, to respect without obligation, to see beyond the surface. And in this human, she saw all of it. The day turned into evening, the lavender sky deepening into shades of indigo. The palace began to glow softly, the crystals reflecting the stars that now appeared above. Solara stood and gestured for Daniel to follow. You may explore a small part of my palace, she said. But remember, this is still my domain. Respect it. Daniel nodded. Of course. As he walked through the palace corridors, he observed the alien architecture, the delicate balance between elegance and strength. It was clear that Solara had built this place with care, thought, and vision. He understood why she was a queen, not just for her power, but for her mind. Solara followed silently, occasionally pointing out details of the palace. She spoke about the gardens, the floating orbs of light, the intricate carvings in the crystal walls. Daniel listened attentively, genuinely interested. Her passion for her world was evident, and he could see why she cared so deeply about it. Eventually, they reached a balcony overlooking the alien forests. The floating islands drifted slowly in the sky, casting shadows on the ground below. Solara leaned against the railing, her eyes distant. You are not like others, she whispered again. Why do you smile at me when I doubt myself? Because, Daniel said, looking at her calmly, I see more than doubts. I see the courage it takes to rule, the heart it takes to care for a world, and the wisdom it takes to listen. That is why I smile. Solara's eyes glimmered with something unfamiliar. Hope. She had lived for centuries, yet no one had ever made her feel seen in this way. No one had ever made her feel that her imperfections were not weaknesses. For a long moment they stood in silence, watching the alien landscape. Daniel knew that this was only the beginning. He did not know what challenges awaited them, but he felt certain that understanding and respect could bridge even the vast gap between human and alien. And for Solara, the human's words lingered in her mind. Maybe, just maybe, she was not hideous. Maybe, just maybe, she could begin to see herself as more than a queen defined by fear and power. The night deepened, and the palace glowed softly under the stars. Daniel felt a strange calmness in this alien world, a sense that trust and curiosity could create bonds that crossed galaxies. This was the start of something new, for the human and the queen alike. A journey of understanding, courage, and perhaps in time admiration. And somewhere in the back of her mind, Solara whispered again, softly, almost to herself. Maybe. I am gorgeous,